All right, everybody, welcome to episode 56 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Duperflex. Bill, how you doing, man?
Doing good. It's the nitty gritty now for the playoffs. We were just talking beforehand about some uh, some things we are a little nervous about coming up for the following week, and it's a fun time of the year. How are you?
Yeah. Man, doing good. Lost in a league that I've been dominating in all year, and now kind of looking at buys and stuff and realizing that another loss this week can actually take me out of a buy that I've been projecting for weeks now. So that's got me a little down. But then you picked me right back up by letting me know that I made the playoffs in Scott Fishbowl, which I honestly can't even believe. I mean, the my team has suffered a lot. Lost Dak Prescott, lost Drew Brees, lost Austin Eckler, lost Raheem Mostert, drafted Hollywood Brown. Just a lot of kind of trying to plug all the holes in the dam with my fingers and not let it all rush out. But somehow I did a good enough job to make the playoffs. So I'm pumped about that. I'm excited. I actually set a lineup for week 13 in Scott Fishbowl. But really the most important thing about that is all the tweets I saw today from various people who are actually doing the shopping for Toys for Tots, man. Like just seeing people buying so $5,000, $10,000 worth of toys that are going to like kids who really need it. I'm excited about making the playoffs, obviously, but like that's the most important thing. And it's so cool to just be in a very small way affiliated with that. So that was cool. But yeah, man, this tis the season, right? We're getting closer and closer. The season is winding down. This week was insane. There was actually football earlier today on a Wednesday, and you know, all of us hardened, grizzly veteran fantasy players are going to talk about 2020 for a long time as the season that just was insane. Replacement players and week 12 matchups getting pushed from Thursday to Wednesday and just craziness. But it's been fun. It's been a good ride, and getting excited for the upcoming playoff push. How about you, man? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, good. Just yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy that the you made the playoffs. You were pretty stoked when we figured that out, and uh, I missed it by like 50 points, which hey, whatever. It was cool. It was fun. And yeah, just ready for this week to see where my teams land up. There's a lot of teams I'm not sure if they're going to make the playoffs or not, and so there's going to be a lot of sweat this week. Finally, to the point where 1 week matters. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be real interesting, especially in those leagues that don't have trade deadlines. You're gonna start seeing some trades go down. Guys who are on the fringe trying to shore up and make a run, and guys that maybe are in first or second place trying to obtain maybe the last piece to get them a championship. So that's also going to be interesting. But
I just got an offer for a guy offering me Dalvin Cook.
whoo, all right, wait a minute. I was going to go to the news, but we got to
Yeah,
talk about this one. So you would be getting Dalvin Cook? What are you
yeah.
giving up?
Well, he wants McLaurin
Okay.
and his first back, and he's a it's 14 team league, and he's in the playoffs.
So I pick is anywhere.
So
I'm assuming six teams make it.
109. It's 109 to 114.
And what's your situation? How are you doing in this league?
I'm in the playoffs. My team's pretty solid. But So
Do
I
you
have
think?
Chubb and Henry and Montgomery and one other.
So does Cook make you a legit championship contender? I
I
don't
don't
think
think
I.
so. I mean, I don't think it's that the difference between who I can start. I mean, basically he'd be taking over from Montgomery, but the difference between my wide receiver McLaurin to my next wide receiver is greater. You know what I mean? So
Nah, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and yeah, I think if
I'm not even sure if value's right there. Like if we remove like my team composition and everything, I'm not sure. Um, I think that I'm paying more than like I'm giving up more than he is value wise.
well, and that's why I asked you where you're at because at this point in the year I don't care about value. Now, don't get me wrong, like I'm not going to make insanely lopsided trades, but
Right.
if Dalvin Cook was the difference between you,
Yeah,
you know,
balance my team more and all that kind of
y-
stuff.
yeah, if it was the difference from you maybe, cashing in on that third place prize if you have it in that league or winning a championship, I don't care about the value. Get the Dalvin Cook, get yourself the championship. You can figure out value later. You can make another trade to recoup some of that. But if it kind of, maybe jumps you from fourth to third, it's not a trade worth making, in my opinion. Especially if you're
Yeah.
saying, the gap between Terry McLaurin and the next wide receiver is greater than whatever perceived gap would be between Dalvin Cook and probably Nick Chubb, based on who you said is the best running back on your team right now.
Well, we would have to look at my worst running back that I'm starting, right? Like that would be the difference. So,
Yeah, yeah.
like Montgomery, I'd be going from Montgomery to Dalvin, and then I'd be going from McLaurin to like um, John Brown, who's on IR. Who am I? Gallup, like
Oh,
that kind of level. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You're in the running back situation, you're getting a top five wide receiver and maybe dropping out a top 24, or I'm sorry, a top five running back and dropping out a top 24 running back. And in the wide receiver situation,
yeah,
you're dropping a top 10 guy and having to bring up like a top
40,
35, 40
yeah,
guy. Like, hey, yeah, it doesn't make sense for you. Like, nah, keep McLaurin because that first, even if we say this guy ends up winning the whole thing, is 114. I mean, I've this is the time of year when I start doing like my first dipping my toe into the water of what the rookies really are and what they're starting to look at. And I think 14 is still going to get you somebody that you like a lot. And that's if you choose to stay there and not package that and try to move up. If you're just dead set on staying at 14, I still and if it ends up being 109, I mean, I don't know if this is a tight end
Oh, and I
premium.
also have Kenyon Drake. So
Yeah, Kenyon Drake is a guy I'm trying to. I only have him in a couple leagues, and he's a guy I'm trying to ship or trying to shop this week because I'm hoping that a contender is interested in the 2 touchdown performance and will take him off my hands because I think he can be good for the rest of this year, but I don't have super high hopes for him going into 2021.
no, I hear
So
you. Yeah,
so if I can ship him off to a contender for a fair package that gets me something to help my rebuilds because I only have them in 2 leagues and I think they're both going to end up being rebuilds anyway. So
yeah,
yeah, if a contender wants to ride him out and pay maybe even a little bit more than asking to try to running backs are at a premium right now. I mean, we're going to talk about guys like Zeke and Kamara, who now all of a sudden are like, are those guys that, we really want to start if we have better options just because of the way their teams have been going. But that was a fun one, man. I actually like that. It was good to talk that out. And if anybody's listening who's in a league with me, send me a trade offer, man. We'll talk about that one too. But until that happens, let's head to the news, my man. So Thursday, Thanksgiving. That seems so long ago. Thanksgiving feels like it happened 3 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah.
But Texans Lions, Deshaun Watson, that man ate on Thanksgiving, 318 yards, 4 touchdowns. Normally, I give you my condolences on Lions losses, but it got you
Thank
what
you.
you finally wanted. It got
Yes.
Matt Patricia the hell out of there. Bob Quinn, goodbye. They're gonna start from scratch. They're going to during this offseason, they're gonna hire a GM, they're gonna hire a new head coach, and it should be interesting to see what direction they go with that. But you know, Deshaun Watson, man, and it's funny because everyone says, hey, they got Bob out of there, and they unlocked, they unlocked big dog, big Watson, Washington, Deshaun Watson. But Bob was a good head coach. He wasn't bad. I mean, he wasn't Bill Belichick, but he wasn't terrible. And then this year, all of a sudden, he just lost his mind. He trades Hopkins and then decides that he wants to try to limit, Deshaun Watson. The first 4 weeks of the season was Mr. Limited, and then they get Bob the hell out of there, and then he turns into Mr. Unlimited. So I don't know if there's anything else you saw in that game that you want to talk about, but Watson was the big thing that caught my eye.
Yeah, I mean he's been looking good for the last month or so. I mean he's looked good honestly all season. It's just a matter of he's running more now, so it's making his fantasy points are a lot higher than they were. So that's cool. Yeah, just happy as a Lions fan that hopefully they can get somebody who the players respect. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty important, and I think that was a big issue. So, I mean, when all these players come out after where he got fired and just celebrated, and they aren't even on the Lions anymore, that kind of
nope.
shows you the disconnect between the coaching staff and the players. So,
Yeah, they must have had a big ass support group because guys on the Lions were happy on it. Ex Lions were happy about it. I think the Lion King was happy about it. Anything that had anything associated with the Lions, yeah, they were they were glad to see him gone. So yeah, and that's I'll say I made a mistake on that. I thought Matt Patricia was going to be a real good head coach, and boy, I was dead wrong about that. So you live and you learn. But we're gonna move on to the second half of the doubleheader. The football team against the Cowboys, and the trade addicts, our brothers, Outhouse and Brian Harr. They do something on their show called Make Amends. So I'm gonna do my Make Amends right now, and it's Antonio Gibson. I mean, he cooked the Cowboys 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, I've hated on him from the beginning. I will say I was an OG on hating on him. It wasn't new, but I mean, man, he's been cooking, and it's it's going to be interesting to see how his career progresses. Will Washington kind of bring in a Thunder to match up with his Lightning? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. But was there anything you saw in that game, Bill?
uh, no, I mean Gibson scored a lot. I mean, I'm not. I mean, that's all touchdowns, right? Like, I mean, you still look at his stats. I mean, it's just super touchdown heavy, and like I think that he's scored more touchdowns than you expect him to score based on his, rushing yards and all of that. So, um, I'm excited about him just to see how he does over the next year. Like if he takes the next step, I wouldn't be surprised if like his touchdowns, slow down a bit. But yeah, I mean just a bad division, and it's just so what can we really take out of it when two teams from that division play each other. I mean, it's just bad football.
And I heard this on a pod today, and I think it's interesting, and I'll see quickly what you think. That Gibson actually has a low key, or maybe not so low key, tough end of the fantasy season. So at Pittsburgh, at San Francisco, home against the Seahawks, and home against the Carolina Panthers. Does that give you pause with Antonio Gibson and what he's been doing?
I mean, if he got you to where you're going, you know what I mean. If he got you into the playoffs, I mean, you still got to consider playing him. But you're definitely going to have to consider that. I think the next two games are really big. So hopefully it doesn't matter this week, and then all you have to worry about is San Francisco the following week once you're in your playoffs. And hopefully you have a bye, right? And then you don't have to worry about either of them. So, but yeah, I mean, it's something you definitely have to consider. And, if you have somebody that's of similar ilk that has a little bit better matchup, I mean, maybe you go in that direction. You can't just close your eyes and plug them in.
Right. Cool. So next game was Raiders Falcons. I mean, I honestly don't really have anything to talk about in that game.
It was awful. Yeah, that game was terrible. Completely not what anybody expected going in, right? If that was the final score, everybody would have thought it would have been the Raiders, if anyone. And it was just, it was just such a crazy, weird game. Their defense looked good. Atlanta's was getting pressure. The Raiders couldn't run. Their defense Atlanta's defense looked like a real defense, and that's not anything we've heard, anytime earlier in the season at all. So, and
our man Brian Harr, Atlanta's defense has been solid since they fired Quinn. I mean, it's the truth. The whole team has looked a lot better since they fired Quinn, and it's unfortunate. It seems like everybody in Atlanta liked him, but just the results weren't there, and they moved on. And Raheem Morris is really it really looks like he's making a play to maybe be the official head coach in 2021. I mean, that team has looked a lot better since he's taken over, and he does have a little bit of head coaching experience from his time in Tampa Bay. So he's not a completely new name. So that'll be interesting.
And he was really young when he was coaching before, so I mean, he does deserve another shot. You can't just expect a young guy. I mean, I think he was in his 30s when he was coaching, and I mean, give the guy a little bit of time to learn from his mistakes and give him that another chance and get him. He's still really young, so if he's rallying the troops like this, you got to seriously consider him as a head coach. And if he doesn't get a job with Atlanta, I have to imagine he'll be getting a job sometime soon, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So we're going to move on to the Chargers and the Bills. And man, Austin Eckler, he comes back. People are like, he's coming right back from the injury. What's going to happen? And, I don't think teams play around with these guys anymore, maybe like they used to, and try to shove them back in too early. We saw it with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, unfortunately, he got hurt again, but once they put him in, it wasn't, hey, we're putting you on a pitch count and we're going to, ramp you up. They go, no, man, we've held you out for this long because once we put you in, we want you to hit the ground running. And 129 yards total. The team was triumphant. Brian Hart's favorite player, Justin Herbert, didn't look as good as he had, but I think that was just more getting used to Austin Eckler being back out there. I think once those two guys get used to each other, holy cow, man, with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, a little bit of Mike Williams sprinkled in if he stays around. I mean, God, the kid has weapons, and the kid has shown that he is something to behold. And I am so glad, Bill. I'm so glad that during the fantasy, actually, since our man Brian Harris here, I'm not going to call it the fantasy offseason. I'm going to call it the non-point scoring season. I was touting Justin Herbert as the 103 in your super flex. And there are so many people that are like, yeah, man, I got him at 108. I got him at 110. I got him at 112. And dude, he is blowing up. And the scary thing is he's probably blowing up on a lot of teams
We're
uh,
already good.
that were already good, you know. So now you just made a
Yeah.
great team even better because you didn't listen to me, and there were other people. I love to joke around and say it was all me, but there were a lot of other people out there too that were kind of tooting that horn and saying, "Hey, man, like Justin Herbert, 103 in your super flex, like you should do that." But we got loved in by JT and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and J.K. Dobbins and guys that I think are gonna be good in the future. But in that super flex, man, you gotta get them QBs. Anything you saw in this game?
Um, no, I mean there was like, I mean Herbert. This was probably the first time I would say he didn't look great. You know what I mean? Like he looked a little shaky at times, but he still put up the points. And so if I'm thinking like he's looking shaky and he's still putting up fantasy points, I mean that's pretty impressive. And Har in the chat was saying that the play calling was awful by the Chargers, and that's so true. Like I don't know how this coaching staff comes back, honestly. Like this isn't just this week. I mean, there's been so many bad calls and just mismanagement for the whole year. I mean, I've caught a disproportionate amount of these Charger games, and it seems like every game that I've watched, there's been something that's just been egregiously wrong. So add that into the fact that he's playing on a team that's being mismanaged. I mean, dear God, you know what I mean? Just imagine if there's like somebody that knows what's going on. Like,
But and I agree with both of you guys because here's the biggest mistake. Tyrod Taylor started week one. And listen, I don't got nothing against Tyrod Taylor. The guy's had a pretty good career. He's done some things in the league, so I don't want to talk about him like he's a scrub. But I mean, Justin Herbert is this guy, and you looked at both of these guys, and they're watching practice, so they're seeing things that we don't see, which is why I didn't question it at the beginning of the season. I said, hey, they're in practice, they're watching it. Tyrod is the guy. And it's almost like, what if this Chargers team doctor didn't puncture Tyrod's lung? Talk about 2020 in a nutshell. Like, Justin Herbert could still be on the bench. Like, that's the craziest part of all of this is like, it took a doctor puncturing Tyrod's lung in order to see the greatness of Justin Herbert. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, unfortunate for Tyrod, but great for everyone else in fantasy to be able to see this guy really just blossom and just kind of take over this amazing spot that he has right now. All right, so we're gonna move on now. Giants Bengals. Wayne Gallman is the star, man. 94 rushing and a touchdown in the battle of the backup quarterbacks. We had Brandon Allen playing for the Bengals, and then Daniel Jones gets hurt, and we see Colt McCoy, man. Colt McCoy, that
he looks
dude.
so bad.
But that man is going to be in the league 5 more years, just backing up in different places. Just, hey, Colt McCoy, ready for you. He would do the little finger gun Colt there, like. But we'll see. We'll see. It looks like DJ's not going to play this week, so Daniel Jones won't be playing this week, and we'll see if he comes back next week. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I think they're going to try to get him out there as soon as possible because as crazy as this sounds, 4-7, they're in first place in the NFC East. So it's kind of like you need all your guys out there because you're going for – the Dallas Cowboys got it right. They took the big L on Thursday.
Yeah, they took it.
They want that number 4 pick.
That's what they did. They lost on purpose.
Listen.
That's how bad it is. They're trying and they're still losing in this crap division.
No, that's what you want to do. Listen, you don't want to drop a dozen spots so you can get boat raced by.
No, I get it, but let's not
See,
pretend like they're trying to lose. Is my point.
well, nobody's trying to lose, but at this point, they just don't have the horses. And no offense, uh, Har wanted to talk about awful play calling by the Chargers. I don't know if you saw the majority of the third and fourth down play calling from the Cowboys. If that's not a coach intentionally trying to lose, then that's a coach that should not have a job anymore because
Well,
the
yeah.
third now both of those things can also be true. But I mean, the third and fourth down play calling was like, hey, it's 4th and 3. Why don't we throw the ball 2 yards and hope that CD Lamb can get around 3 guys for a first down? Like that, it's probably not successful play calling. But hey, keep losing games, Cowboys. I'm behind us having the number 4 pick because I think that's where the draft is going to end up starting. Uh, the 2 QBs are going to go 1 and 2, whether the Jets or the Jaguars have picks 1 or 2. The Bengals, I think, are going to shore themselves up at pick number 3. They're going to go Penny Sewell, and then hopefully Trey Lance or Mac Jones or somebody really kind of jumps
Who?
off the. Ooh, Mac Jones! Jump off the screen and someone trades a haul to get up to 4, and the Cowboys can get picks because Lord knows they need as many picks as humanly possible because they need help all over that defense. Guys are going to get healthy on the offensive line, but it's been proven this year they need depth at that position, and there's a lot of holes to fill. So hopefully that can happen. But anyway, I digress. Anything from Giants and Bengals that are you want to talk about? Nah.
No.
All right, let's go. Titans Colt. Woo! Derrick Henry. 178 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did most of that in the first half. I mean, this is going to be a theme where these players are just going to have these massive quarters or halves. But yes, Derrick Henry, this is when he goes beast mode. King mode, we'll call it king mode, where these last like 4, 5, 6 games of the season, he just he hulks up, he gets hit with gamma rays. I don't know what happens to him, but he turns into a freaking monster. And his schedule is like Houston, Jacksonville, Detroit. Like good, like forget the fact that he's bigger and faster than just about every other running back in the NFL, but then you give him 3 cupcake defenses to just smoke through.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but it might be one of those things where he only plays a half because of that, and so you know what I mean. Just because he just destroys them in the first half, or the team destroys them. So,
but if that half is 150-2, does it matter?
No, but it'd be nice to get more.
Oh, of course, it's always nice to get more, but I mean, listen, that was pretty much his first half line in that game, wasn't it? 150-2, something around there, 130-ish maybe.
Yeah.
And 2, but I mean, and someone brought up a good point on a pod, and I listened to too many. I wish I could remember who. These bad defense, these bad teams at the end of the year, and they don't want to tackle Derrick Henry. They want to be able to go home healthy, sit with their families, play with their kids. They're not trying to tackle Derrick Henry and blow a shoulder out or blow out a kneecap because he just trucked them and then have to spend the whole offseason trying to rehab from an injury. So, that's that. But all right, let's go. Panthers, Vikings. Panthers don't like Cousins, and I'm not talking about their Cousins, but I'm talking about Kirk Cousins because 307-3. I mean, Kirk Cousins out there looking like, Michigan State's finest, right? Kirk Cousins. I'll rep you a little bit there, Bill. He looked good. There was no Adam Thielen. Dalvin Cook didn't have his best game, but we got a couple gritties from Justin Jefferson. Our man Brian Harr, of course. You like that? Listen, the people in Minnesota, they like that. They're very happy with what Kirk Cousins is doing. Anything else from that game, Bill?
No.
Let's go. All right, Cardinals and Patriots. Drake goes platinum. Platinum. You see what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
In a loss, 93 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Talking about this earlier. If you are not a contender and you have Kenyon Drake on your team, this is a guy you should try to be moving to a contender, because if he keeps piling up these touchdowns, let him help somebody win a league, and you get some assets that will help your rebuild. Bill, do you see anything from this game?
Yeah, I mean, Kyler's struggling, right? Like, he's obviously got an issue with the shoulder, and I think that's preventing him from running as much. I mean, you see it all the time. Even when running backs have shoulder issues, they struggle, and you just don't want to get hit there, and it's just impossible not to. And it just seems like that's taking a major facet of their offense out, and you've seen them struggle the last few weeks because of that. So hopefully that's something that's healing in the meantime, and he can get back to being the human joystick again, and that offense starts going again. But it's interesting just to see how much Christian Kirk has affected Hopkins. Like, once he came back and got healthy, that really took away a lot of the targets for Hopkins, and Hopkins still looks just as great. He's just not getting those targets anymore. So, hopefully Kyler gets better, and we see. I mean, this is kind of what we expected at the beginning of the year. This was a concern that they were going to spread the ball around, and maybe that's just finally happening because there's healthier wide receivers other than Hopkins now.
For sure, and an interesting stat, and I think I heard this on the Footballers. If I'm wrong, somebody will correct me. And I'm not going to take this one way or the other, but we talk about Lamar and kind of his drop off from last year to this year. 34% of Lamar Jackson's points in 2019 came from the run game, a pretty high percentage. This year, 37% of Kyler Murray's points are coming from the run game. So just just a little tidbit there, and I'm not going to tell people how to think about that or what they want to do going into startups, but I just thought it was interesting. All right, Dolphins Jets. Mr. Parker's neighborhood, Devontae Parker, 8 receptions, 119 yards. We see our man Ryan Fitzmagic. He's back in the fold. He had to start while Tua's dealing with a thumb injury. Don't know how long that's going to last for, but they do what everyone does against the Jets, and they win the game. So anything else you see from that game?
Nah, it's good to see Fitzpatrick back out there. That's always cool to see him get some time. He's just more aggressive, right? Like, it's just different. Like, Tua's still very, hesitant to be aggressive. I think he's just a little bit more passive, and which you expect, a lot of times with rookies in their first 2, 3, 4 games, and just having a YOLO quarterback out there with those types of wide receivers, that's what you need. Like, these guys aren't always going to have the separation, so he's got to just chuck that ball and give them a chance to make a play, and he probably fits better for them going into the playoffs, just to be able to be aggressive, because they're going to need that to win, right? Like, I mean, they're not going to win all those games like they were with Tua, where he's throwing less than 100 yards and they win, so at times they're going to need a quarterback that's going to give them that chance. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because there's people thinking that maybe there's some that thumb isn't really a thumb issue, and they just kind of want to put Fitzpatrick back out there. We'll see how it kind of plays out, but I enjoy seeing him out on the field, that's for sure.
So a little public service announcement before we go to the next game. Since we deal with Twitter, I'm talking to Twitter. Twitter, stop asking why Adam Gase still has a job. We all know why he has a job.
Yep.
The best way to go 0-16 is to let Adam Gase ride this thing out. And guess what? his swipe card ain't going to work as soon as that game is over. As soon as week 17's over, swipe card deactivated.
It's going to be like first quarter they shut that thing off of this week 17.
He can't get in the building no more. All right. Guess what?
At halftime, he's going to be like knocking on the window.
Guess what? As soon as they may even do it at halftime, they may announce that they're firing Adam Gase. Okay. That might be what actually happens. And just because I didn't know, I wanted to look this up myself. Week 17, the Jets play, because I, gotta get my facts right. They are away. They are at the Patriots. So guess what? He may not even have a ride home. Okay,
he'll have to catch a Greyhound.
Yeah, he call Uber, drive your ass home. But he's there for that reason, to go 0-16, to lock up Trevor Lawrence. Stop asking. Someone said, How does Adam Gase still have a job? And Matt Patricia got fired. Guess what? Guess what? The Lions ain't trying to get Trevor Lawrence. They're not in the sweepstakes. The Jets, they're in the sweepstakes. And until they're mathematically the number one pick, Adam Gase is going to have a job. He's the best man for the job. Actually, I kind of wish we could trade coaches right now. Dallas, trade for Adam Gase just so we can assure we're locked up in the fourth pick. All right, that's what I would like to see. But stop asking that question. All right, next game, Browns Jags. Chubb slays the Jags. 176 total yards and a touchdown. He's so good, man, and it doesn't even matter what the matchup is. He's killing everyone right now. Anything else you saw from that game, Bill?
No, there's not much to say in that one. I mean, the Jags are just. I mean, Glennon actually looked okay. He looked better than Luton did, and but that's not saying much.
Yeah, and if you want to inquire about the rest of Chubb's schedule, playoff matchups and such, at the Titans, home against the Ravens, at the Giants, at the Jets, and week 17, you better not be playing in week 17, but home against the Steelers. So Titans, Ravens, Giants, Jets. I like at least two of those matchups, and he's probably going to do okay in the other two. So fire him up. Hopefully he leads you to a championship. Saints, Broncos. In the battle of the QBs, and I put that in parentheses on the show sheet, Latavius Murray reigned supreme, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. We had Kendall Hinton, we had Taysom Hill, who at this point, yes, Taysom Hill is 2-0. I'm not going to take that away from him, but I think we can all agree at this point he is not a 16-week starting quarterback in the NFL. I think that's been proven out, and unless he's going to run for 2 touchdowns every week.
I mean, that might be the case, though, right? Like, I mean, I don't necessarily agree that he's not a starting quarterback. I mean, it's just a matter of how you build your team. But he is a fantasy murderer. Like, he'll destroy the whole team fantasy-wise. Kamara getting 1 target, I think, and he's just not going to be that prolific passer. So, and he's going to vulture goal line touchdowns. So it's like, he'll score decently, but he's never going to be like super prolific, I don't think. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I mean, I don't think Peyton cares if it's pretty. You know what I mean? As long as it's effective, and if he can figure out a way to make that effective, who knows what they do next year?
I mean, agree. For fantasy, to fire that dude up every week. I mean, he's going to get you rushing touchdowns. He may even throw for 1 in a game. But overall, I guess I'm saying more from an actual NFL, not from a fantasy.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm saying fantasy is terrible for all the other fantasy players.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying for NFL, I mean, Peyton's won twice with them, and he looks like he's granted, we can't even count this game. Let's be honest. Like, they literally went up against nobody this week. So, like, I can't even give him credit for this one. But, I mean, so that's why it's kind of hard to even say, what we've seen so far is what he would be next year, I guess.
Yeah, I don't see him as a guy that you can start 16 games and be successful with. Obviously, if anyone can do it, Sean Payton can, because that dude is an offensive genius. But we've kind of seen it with Lamar. If you can't threaten people consistently with the arm, eventually they'll game plan for the legs. And
well, let's be honest. Last week there was more deep passes connected to Emmanuel Sanders than there was the whole rest of the year with Drew Brees. So, I mean, he does change the dynamic where he can actually complete deep passes. So, I'm not saying like he's great, and I'm not saying I disagree with you necessarily, but I just don't think we've seen enough to make that statement yet.
And see, that's what I love about you, Bill. I will make the rash call, and and I will go there and say that I don't think that an actual NFL team can be successful with Taysom Hill at the helm, but okay. you want to see it, and hey, know what?
I don't want to say it. I just don't know, and I just, based on what I've seen, there's no way I could say one way or the other, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. Last week was kind of was crazy. I mean, Denver didn't have a quarterback, and Taysom Hill went 9 for 16 for 78 yards in the passing game. He threw a pick. But, I mean, the dude in the rushing game was crazy. So, 10 rushes, 44 yards, 2 touchdowns. And, the week before against Atlanta, he went 18 for 23 for 233. So it's one of those things that you got to keep an eye out for. You got to see what he can do, what he can't do. It'll be curious. A lot of people are saying in this year's draft, first round is going to be filled with quarterbacks. Some people are saying 5, 6 quarterbacks could go in the first round. Maybe the Saints are in on that. They'll probably be, much, much later in that first round, but there are going to be some guys hanging out. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, or maybe they go the free agent route and bring in Jimmy G or Sam J, trade for Sam Darnold or something like that. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
For sure.
49ers and the Rams. Debo stole the Rams' bike, 11 receptions, 133 yards. And I think people sleep on him sometimes. He gets injured. He's out there. We kind of forget what he is. We talk about Brandon Ayuk, who's probably somebody in a week or two. I'm going to have to make amends on him too, because I was never high on him. God, if the two of them can be out on the field at the same time and healthy for a few weeks and get into a rhythm, holy cow, man, that offense could be humming. But anything from that game, Bill?
I mean, the Niners just own the Rams. I think that's 4 games in a row they've won. And don't sleep on the Niners. I mean, they could easily end up 10-6. So we might see them in the playoffs even after all of those injuries, and I mean, with that coach and a healthy team, for the most part, I mean, they very well could end up being like, would I be stunned if they were in the Super Bowl? I wouldn't be stunned. I might be a little surprised, but I mean, they have the talent. They were just there. So, it's not much has changed. So I think it's going to be a fun division. Now, that's the fun division to watch, right? Like, everybody's good in that division. Yeah. So, it'll be fun to see how that plays out for sure.
I would be stunned if they made the Super Bowl, just because I feel like the NFC has some heavy hitters in it, some teams that can really go. Mm-hmm. But I would not be stunned at all if they make the playoffs. They're playing with a lot of heart right now. They're down a lot of guys between injuries, and they've had some guys on the COVID list, and they're gutting it out every week. And now the talk is, George Kittle could be back in a couple weeks, and if he comes in I know he's been rehabbing an injury, but fresh, not, not banging his body around playing football in week 15, week 16, and he's there for that late season push, and then you get him in the play. Oh man, that could be
Then
an
would you be
X factor.
surprised?
I would still be surprised, but he is that
Would you
X
be
factor.
stunned?
I think I would still be stunned,
Okay,
but
okay,
but
we're on a different page there. I just think they have so much talent
he's an
that.
X factor. Like
Mm,
he's someone who is impossible to game plan. I don't care who you are. The Saints defense is humming right now. The Bucks defense has been good all year, but he's almost unguardable.
mm,
Like, what are you
yeah,
going to put a linebacker on him? All right, yeah, we'll see that linebacker 10 yards behind him. You're gonna put a corner on him. Oh, good luck. He's
all
gonna
right,
put that guy
post
in the
up.
hospital.
Yeah,
So it's like, what do you do against them? But that'll be for D coordinators to figure out, not me.
yeah,
Chiefs Bucks, and I think this was kind of this was billed as the main event of Week 13, and Tyreek Hill, good, 200, over 200 yards in the first quarter. He ends the game with 269 and 3. I said Tyreek is king of the hill because he was. Um, dude, like the best part of that game is when he was on the phone and he was saying, "Help is coming, help is coming, help over the top is coming," because they were just like, "Yeah, we're gonna play man." And Tyreek Hill was, I think it was Patrick Mahomes after the game said, "We don't see man very often," and that's the
that's
reason
why.
why.
Yeah.
I mean, they were playing man. I forgot the corner who was covering Tyreek.
Oh
I,
yeah, he was just getting abused. Felt
I
bad for the
felt
guy.
Me too. Because, like, I'm watching the game and I'm going, all right, well, they can't keep just manning. No, they're going to keep doing. Oh, he's caught another. No, they're not going to do. No, they did it this time. And it was just like, someone help him, please.
Or at least move the safety over so you have a little bit more, a little less space to cover when you're
like,
getting over that way.
you're. I'm literally watching a guy become depressed in real time because no, they did not build a game plan to say, hey, like, we're going to help you with Tyreek Hill, who is the fastest dude in the league. But anything else from that one?
I mean, it was truly the passing of the torch, right? Like, I mean, Mahomes is just the best quarterback. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, it didn't feel like the score at the end of the game did not represent how much of a blowout that game felt like, So, I don't know. I don't even know what to think about the Bucks right now because they're so hot and cold that they could easily just flame out in the first round of the playoffs, and it wouldn't stun me if they
Yeah,
make it.
and they're a team too that are, it's kind of like what you were saying about the 49ers. Like, they could be a first round out depending on who they play and where they have to play, and they could make it to the Super Bowl. It just depends on what team shows up for those
Yeah,
3 to 4 weeks, and what they do in that game. And it's funny because we talk about Tyreek Hill, and then we go, well, Travis Kelce only had 8 for 82 because Tyreek Hill had such a massive game that we look at 8 for 82 which would be a pretty good game, a great game for a tight end, but a pretty good game for a wide receiver, and we dismiss it because Tyreek Hill just took that game over. So yeah, fire up all your Chiefs, no matter who they play.
right.
Bears Packers. Aaron Rodgers, led a real team effort. And if you look at kind of the stat sheet and watch the game, he's spreading it around. They're using both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. And I've never seen a guy throw for 211 yards, and it felt like he threw for 411 yards. when I actually looked at the box score at the end of the game, I said, he only threw for 211 yards? That doesn't make any sense to me. I felt like he was just doing whatever he wanted on the field.
Yeah.
But he had 4 touchdowns, and he's Devontae Adams had one. I think Adam Lazard had one. He went from a guy that nobody wanted in startups in 2020 to a guy that everybody's going to want startups in 2021. So it's going to be fun to see what his ADP ends up being once we get to the start of the 2021 season. But is there anything else, Bill, that you?
I mean, Trubisky didn't look any better this time around. So, like, he looked really rough still. I think that this is, if he plays the next game or two and he doesn't look markedly better than he did this week, I think he might be the last. This might be the last we see of him for a while.
It's so funny because he looks exponentially better than Nick Foles, but he still looks terrible. Like, so it's like one of those things. It's like he's probably going to finish out the year because they actually put points on the board with him at the helm. But you're right. Like, unless he kind of turns into Pat Mahomes for the last few games of the season, he's gone. And
I mean, he needs to turn into Teddy Bridgewater. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, if he could turn into that would be markedly better than what he's been.
Yeah, and he ends up with 3 touchdowns and so, garbage time and all that stuff. But
yeah.
You don't care for fantasy, but for reality, that's a big deal because guess what? Throwing touchdowns when you're down, 1 million points doesn't really do anything to win real NFL games. So it'll be interesting. I think he finishes out the season just because, there was at least some offense, but it's also a thing where he's going to have to really kill it to have a job. And honestly, I don't think he will be there next year. He'll probably catch on as a backup somewhere,
Yep.
Because some offensive coordinator will say, he was the number 2 pick. I can make him a real thing. We'll have him in as a backup and he can, but yeah, you'll see a lot of them in preseason, assuming we have one in 2021. So, all right, Seahawks, Eagles. I said you better arrest DK Metcalf for killing 53 Eagles, man. 10 receptions, 177 yards. I don't know what the Eagles' defensive game plan was, but there was no part of it that said stop DK Metcalf. So, and just remember, shout out to Rocky, our resident Eagles fan. Co-host of the Dynasty Junkies. The Eagles took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside ahead of DK Metcalf. Just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of players taken before him.
All right, listen, Andy Isabella, he was a stud that was taken before DK Metcalf.
Yeah. So,
yeah, hey, listen, it is what it is. But was there anything you saw from that game?
I mean, that offensive line's so bad. It's just decimated. It's bad. It's like, I mean, Wentz really has no chance. But then even when he does have the chance, he's not looking good. So it's just, I think he's just so destroyed. He's so antsy now. Like, you see it when quarterbacks keep getting hit. Like, he's been sacked more than anybody by a mile. And it's just, it's just a bad year. And I don't know what to think for him going forward. Like, are they going to want to keep him? What are they going to want to do? Are they going to want to just blow it up? Because I think they're in a little bit of salary cap trouble next year. And he's a large part of that. But I don't know if they could even cut him or do anything because that might hurt them even worse. So I'll have to look into that to see if that's even a possibility. But he can't get much lower in value, so maybe he's actually a guy to trade for.
So here's the interesting thing about Carson Wentz, and you are 100% right. The Eagles are going to be in big salary cap hell. I mean, every team is going to be in some salary cap issue because of the salary cap going down. But the Eagles are going to be one of the hardest hit teams. Now, here's the issue with Carson Wentz. You can cut him next year if you want to pay almost $60 million in dead cap.
So they're not going to do that.
So we can look towards 2022, and if you want to cut him after that season, you got to pay $24.5 million dead cap.
I mean,
So
that's more likely because then they could do the June 1st. I don't even know if they still have that with the new collective bargaining, but if they can, then they can cut them for the following year's dead cap next off season.
yeah, so let's see. So if they did a post June 1st release, he would count 9 million against the 2022 dead cap
Okay.
and 15 million against the 2023 dead cap.
Okay. So that's more, palatable, I guess.
Right.
But regardless, he's going to be there next year. So he may be a guy worth grabbing because there's people are going to be so down on him right now that you might be able to get a deal and just throw him on your bench until next season.
So here you go. What are you trying to give up to get a Carson Wentz?
If I had a late first, I would do it.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Like if I'm a playoff team, I would take that shot.
Okay. I think that's more than I would be willing to give right now. But I mean, at the end of the day, he's a starting quarterback, and as much as we want to clown on him, he's probably going to be a starting quarterback next year. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think Jalen Hurts takes the crown. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I
You'd have to
think
think they'd put him in more, right? Like they'd have more plays for Hurts right now if they really believe that he was close to Wentz, right?
well, and I don't know if you were hearing this, but living around Philly, the big talk was that Jalen Hurts is getting more first team reps and all this stuff, and people were like, wow, well, if they're giving him more first team reps, maybe they're starting to think like, let's try him out on some drives and see if this is it. And that didn't really come to fruition during the game.
No.
So either that was just kind of a smokescreen and they were hoping maybe to mess with Seattle's defensive game planning, or he did get more first team reps in practice and it wasn't what the coaching staff wanted to see.
Right.
I also think an issue, and I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I think unless things change, Doug Peterson and staff won't be there after 2021. And they may want to give Carson that 1 year with a new staff to try to see if they can revive his career. So we'll see. We'll see about that. But the final game, Ravens Steelers, dude. So
I remember that one.
We had Wednesday football. I mean, it wasn't great. Now, obviously, the Ravens have a pretty good built-in excuse. Half their team was on the COVID list, so they were without Lamar Jackson and without J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram. I think their starting center and their backup center were gone. Mark Andrews was gone. The list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, it was rough.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't really take advantage of that. I was like, God,
yeah, there's a lot of drops, right? Like,
yeah.
There was just so many drops. Ebron dropped so many. Deontay dropped a ton. Every time Ebron drops one, my heart just fills up with joy. Like, as a Lions fan, it's just like, good. Somebody else gets to see what we felt. But yeah, I mean, it could have been way worse. If they didn't have all those drops, it could have been just an utter blowout. So that's really the only thing that I think kept that score reasonably close.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was it was a hard game to watch, but hey, we got Wednesday football, and 2020 will be the first year that there is a NFL football game played every day of the week. So we got that going for us. All right, so we went through the news. We're gonna go to what we saw on the timeline, and the first one is from our man, friend of the show, John Bauer at the Bauer Club. I actually joked around with him and told him that if he keeps on giving us all this good content, we're gonna have to cut him in on all this big time podcast money that we're making. So he's got to stop helping us out so much. But he got a question here. So he says, you're in a startup right now. How far does Ezekiel Elliott have to drop for you to take him? RB what? So, Bill, I'm going to start with you. And where would you put Ezekiel Elliott in a startup, RB what?
I'm looking at the list right now. Geez. It'd probably be around RB 14.
Wow, really? RB
Mm,
14. All right, so let's let's play my favorite game and
yep.
let's see if we can
Now, we got to put this into context.
mhm.
When I'm in a startup, I'm not drafting old running backs. Like that's just not how I play the game. So I might take a younger guy who I feel has more years that I'm gonna get out of him.
Mhm.
So it doesn't necessarily mean I think he's the 14th best running back. So just to be clear.
Okay. Um so this is DLF November ADP, just so we have a gauge here. So since you said 14, I'll start at 14 and we'll just give me a yes or no. Zeke Elliott or Aaron Jones?
That's right where I'm struggling. So that's why I said 14.
Okay, so let's go above that then. Nick Chubb or Zeke Elliott?
Chubb.
I'm with you on that one. Zeke or DeAndre Swift?
I mean, I'm going Swift.
That's a
Because I mean he's 1 year in, so I know I'm getting at least 3 more years of him.
that
Um,
that's a tough one for me.
we both have bias in this, so
Like half of me says Zeke and half of me says Swift.
well then
That's
the answer is Swift because you're biased.
yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I could see that.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins or Zeke Elliott?
I mean, I'd probably go JK because I think that the situation is going to open up for him this year, in 21. I mean,
Mhm.
so I think I would probably go him because that's how I'm building my team in startups usually.
Okay, I think I would go Zeke just because
I get that though. I
I
mean,
am still a little wary of this situation. This
yep.
one's this one's a layup. Zeke or Derrick Henry?
I mean, I'm going Henry because of the volume. It's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. That's why I said it's a layup. Like I'm going Derrick Henry too. I think this one is interesting. Zeke or Josh Jacobs?
It's Jacobs. It's just the age. I feel like they're both going to get similar volume, so I'm buying a few years.
Yeah, and I think I go Zeke, and the only reason why I go Zeke is because of uh, Jacobs' injury history. Um, but I agree with you. I think similar value to be had. Um, Zeke or Miles Sanders?
I mean, it's going to be the same answer for like all these guys in that same age range. So I mean, that's why I'll go Sanders.
All right, so we'll get to some. We'll get to a couple of guys who are in the age range.
Well, we don't have to keep going up because every one of them above it, I'll take over Zeke.
You'll take over Zeke.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think I'm a little higher on Zeke just because I think where the drop off is happening is due to the fact that Dak is out now. I mean, I
No.
think I think Zeke was RB2 or RB3 before the Dak injury, so I don't see why he's not
And
in
he's a year
a
older.
any. Yeah, but he's not. We're talking about Dalvin Cook, who's the same age and has a much more extensive injury history over Zeke, and Alvin Kamara. We're talking the same age, and we're talking about those guys over Zeke. I'm just saying
For sure.
that I'm saying that with Dak in the fold, he was RB2 or RB3. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that he's going to be in a similar range. Whether you want to say that's RB5, you know, as
Well,
long as
that's what
that,
you would draft him. Yeah. I mean, it's just different way of building your team. Like
yeah,
that's. I mean, I'm never starting in a startup adding old running backs. That's just not how I build my team. I'm adding quarterbacks. Adding wide receivers, young running backs, and that's because then my team can grow into it. So unless a guy falls to me, like if Zeke falls to me in the third round, I mean, I might consider it, but I'm not going to pick him otherwise, I don't think.
And he's going to be an interesting guy because I saw a lot of that same sentiment on the responses to this tweet. Is like, oh, if he's there in round 3 or if he's there in round 4, like I'll take him. And I'm going to be very curious where Zeke ends up because as much as we all want to say like, oh, if he's there in round 3, I'll take him.
I might not even.
I don't think
it depends who else is there.
Right. I don't. Well, not even that, but I don't think he's going to last to round 3. I mean, I think.
You think he's in the top 24 picks in a lot of the drafts?
I mean, well, that's tough because. I mean, it all depends on if you are grading Zeke on what has it been 6 games without Dak Prescott, or if you're grading him on his whole career with Dak Prescott. So I guess that's where the
I just don't. We just look at it differently, like how
I think that's where the divide is going to be. You know, depending on how you look at Zeke. But it was an interesting exercise. Thank you, JB. Appreciate it. This is from the Dynasty Trades guy at Dynasty Trader 2. Which RB do you prefer in Dynasty? Would you want Aaron Jones or Josh Jacobs?
I'd want Josh Jacobs. I just don't know where Aaron Jones is going to be next year. I think he might resign with Green Bay, but when Jamal Williams is healthy, they seem to get a pretty even split. So yeah, I'm just buying the years again. I mean, that's how I play typically. I'm not adding the older guys. If I have a choice between 2 guys that I'm reasonably split on, I'll take the younger guy.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite, and
that's perfect. I mean, that just shows you that you and I build our teams differently, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like, there's no wrong answer here, and I know that's you always go into it adding. You want to win the first year typically,
and
that's not how I typically play.
Yeah, so I just think Aaron Jones does so much, and you're right. He's a free agent, you know, unless he signs with Green Bay once this season's over. It's going to be interesting because a lot of the big time running backs did get signed up, but there's still a lot of big time running backs that are going to be available. And now with the salary cap going down,
exactly, yeah, we don't know how it's going to play out.
It's going to be very interesting because I mean I think we've seen around the league for the most part. You know, there obviously have been some teams that have bucked the trend, but we've seen running backs just kind of like, oh yeah, go do what you got to do. Like, go get your money somewhere else and, you know, be happy. And it's not going to be here. But it's like, you know, it's one of those things. I almost said Jacksonville, and then I remembered James Robinson was there, and I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of a team where it's like, they kind of suck right now. But if, you know, Aaron Jones showed up, they got a couple of weapons. And
Miami,
like, they have a top 10 pick right now, plus their own first round pick, plus they have the 4 picks in the top 50, I think someone said.
He'd be a pretty decent match with them, to be honest.
And, you know, if they could fill in maybe a legit number 1 receiver, you know, they get like Jamar Chase in the first round and with that first Houston pick, and, you know, maybe fill in some O-line spots and shore up some things on defense, and they just go, all right, we're going to spend the big money on running back. Oh, Aaron Jones comes in, and now all of a sudden you're looking at an offense with Tua, Jamar Chase, and Aaron Jones and Mike Gesicki, even though they're using like every tight end in Miami right now. But it'd be interesting.
And they may not even have to spend big money. That's the issue, right? Like these running backs,
true.
Might be $5 million a year. Like we don't know what people are going to offer these guys, and you know people are going to opt to pay positions that matter. You know, I mean, not to say that running backs don't, but they're easier to find replacements of. So who knows what all these guys in the free agency are gonna like. Nobody's gonna get franchised this year because like it's just so much money. and these teams are going to be so hard up because of that cap issue. It's going to be crazy. I think we're just going to see it's going to be like startup mode in like Madden or something, where you're just drafting players, because it's just going to be like there's going to be so many free agents.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. Like all our dynasty teams are just going to be so wrecked because nobody's where we thought they were going to be next year.
Yeah, like, man, it's so funny. You could legit say like Aaron Jones could end up in like 7 different places and be making, less money than like Jerick McKinnon. Like,
Yeah.
it's like and by the way, San Francisco is a spot he could end up.
You never know.
They don't have a lead dog that's like, oh, Raheem Mostert, I guess,
Yeah.
but like, we've kind of seen, what can happen if Raheem Mostert isn't around all the time. So that'll be fun. That'll be interesting to do. And if we ever co-own a team and do a startup, man, we're going to be having some discussions.
Nah,
man,
we won't be co-owning a team. Oh yeah, we will. Listener.
We'll co-own one team, and we're going to have some discussions.
That'll be fun.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun for sure. All right, we got one more. This is from the third host of the Fantasy Timeline, Drew from the 615, our main man Drew at dr_pra. Who is the biggest disappointment this year at QB? And this is going to be a fun one to talk about because we've talked about a couple of these guys already. Baker Mayfield, Carson Wentz, or Lamar Jackson? I'll go first, and I'll say Carson Wentz. I think he was, for the most part, a top 10 to 12 quarterback, and this is a dude that if you have any other viable option, even in a super flex, you're not starting him. If your third quarterback is, Nick Mullins and the matchup is right, you might be like, what do I do? If your third guy is Baker, you're probably like most weeks really considering it because
no,
Carson Wentz is, he was okay for a while in fantasy, and now he's really starting to not even be okay. And so there are a lot of you're contemplating on a lot of guys. If you have a decent third quarterback in Superflex, you're like really you're contemplating it. So I think Wentz would be my pick. Okay. What about you? You got Baker, Wentz, or Lamar?
Yeah, so Baker, he's not going to be what I consider the biggest disappointment because my expectations were so low.
Yep.
So I don't feel like there's really anything that didn't surprise me. So then it's down to Wentz or it's down to Lamar. So I base it off of where they are compared to the amount of capital that you had to give up for the player. So for me, it's Lamar. Lamar is what, a QB 12 to 14 range maybe, and you had to give up first round draft capital for him in a startup. So you're not reaping the benefit. You're hurt the greatest by him getting him, as opposed to Wentz, who might have been maybe a third round pick in a superflex startup. And he's performing as a probably middle of the road quarterback 2. So I just feel like the amount that you had to give up for Lamar, I have to consider him I consider him the biggest disappointment for the year.
Yeah, and I thought about I definitely thought about Lamar because obviously, in a lot of situations, Lamar was in a superflex. Lamar was 102.
Yeah.
So it's not even that you were giving up first round capital. You were giving up probably
early first,
top 5 pick at the latest.
Yeah.
I know in a league I had in a startup I had 104, and I actually traded out of that pick. And I think I dropped to 105 or 106, and I knew. It was a buddy of mine, and I knew he was going for Lamar. Lamar was still on the board, and he wanted him some Lamar. And in that trade, I actually ended up with some other pieces. I ended up getting Deshaun Watson when I dropped a couple picks, and I got Ryan Tannehill in a 14-team superflex.
Yeah, so that's
So,
huge.
so I mean, and I got other stuff too. So just those two pieces alone make up for Lamar this year. I mean, he thought he was
Well, Deshaun already beat some. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, yeah, Lamar, you were paying a pretty penny, whether it was in a trade or with your own picks. You were paying a lot. So I'm on MFL right now. Lamar Jackson is 11th in points per game, and you were probably using like, you're probably one of the first 5 picks of the first round
Yeah.
to grab him. Let me see if I can find. And Wentz is at 14. So, I mean, he's had his last couple of weeks have been a little rough. I think. Actually, no,
Because he has that rushing floor. He's been running a lot this year, and I think that's what's been saving him.
he had a bad one against the Cowboys of all teams, which is funny, and a bad one against the Giants in week 8 and 10 on both sides of the bye. And then he's been decent since then. But yeah, I mean, he runs a little bit. Obviously, unless you're playing in like a Scott Fishbowl, his completion percentage doesn't burn you too much. And if you are playing in the Scott Fishbowl with Carson Wentz, I feel sorry for you. But hey, listen, I started Mike Glennon this week with all my quarterback injuries, so I actually don't feel that bad for you. Um, but dude, I think that's it. I think we wrapped it up. We hit all the high notes, as I like to say, and we did a damn good job. We went a little running back heavy, but that's always fun because it's always a good place to debate because the pool of elite running backs is so limited that once you start fighting over them, you really get into some nitpicky territory, and it's kind of like you said perfectly. It's all about personal preference. Do you want to buy youth? Do you want to buy the years? Do and everybody does it a little differently, so that's what makes it fun. But on that note, man, thank you to Bill for educating us, for his big brain spewing out all of that knowledge. But thank you to everybody in the chat too, man. We had our man Brian Harr in there. He was doing it. We had Lindsay Kennedy. She stopped in for a minute. It was a lot of people in and out. So much fun, man. It's always fun when the chat gets involved and helps us out and gives us some stuff to talk about. If you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to hit this subscribe button, hit the bell. Just search DAP Network if you're looking for us, because once you subscribe to us, you also will get whatever else our other brothers put out there at the Trade Addicts Pod, our guys at Dynasty Junkies. Getting Real with Casey Kasem. That pod is so good. I actually got a couple stored up because I've been virtually helping my child through school. So between that and work, I've been slacking on my pod game. But I will catch up. I will listen to them all. And if you're listening to us on podcasts, appreciate that too, man. We're almost at an hour and 20 minutes, and that's a long time. You could be doing anything else, but you decided to listen to Bill be knowledgeable and me just say whatever the hell comes out of my mouth. So appreciate that. And remember, subscribe. You probably already are subscribed if you're listening to us, but tell someone else to subscribe. Rate us, review us. We do look at it. We do, try to listen to what you guys have to say because it is helpful to us. So, Bill, on that note, dude, we are out of here.
Late.